I just figured we'd start at 1 o'clock.
I know, yeah, this is not great that we're starting at 1:34. Whatever.
Can't ever expect on time, I think, in something like this.
Yeah. Exactly. Did you pop that?
Yep. 28er.
We got 8. How did it? Is this like? Did you say we find out when?
Wait for Kinger to let us know. All right.
David. With Gateway Fiber.
Is that him?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it working?
Hey.
Live on YouTube.
Live stream.
Shout out to Pull Tab Sports Nation. No one?
No.
Just wait. Nice, Reagan. You're so tech savvy. No. You're shitting me. Zero preparation. All right. We'll be ready to go in just a few minutes here. We can just, if David comes in a little bit later, that is what it is. Whatever.
Yeah.
Let's just start.
Yeah.
I think you went down there.
Oh yeah, he's doing an interview. Okay.
That's fine.
You could always hop in.
Yeah,
it's
he can
fine.
hop in whenever. Like
Yeah.
we can.
We'll mix them in. All right. Let's go, Reagan.
Oh, there's another person. There's 2 people on.
Woo! How about that gold medal, men's and women's hockey, Matt? How you feeling about it?
USA. Siri, play Freebird. All right, let's see. I'm going to see if we can pull this up. Pull tab. Oh, yeah, look at us. We're live.
Look at that. Little
We
ice
are
time in the
live.
background. Throw a few pucks around. All right, so we'll intro into the show, episode 139, Vikes Verified Podcast. We're here with David from Gateway Fiber. David, tell us a little bit about your product, what you're offering here in Minnesota.
Yep. Man, how do I share this? I can't share. Oh, I can.
All right.
All right.
Hey, David, how we doing?
How we doing?
Good to see you.
Good.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So I think we'll just intro into the show quick, and then I'm going to say, we got David here from Gateway Fiber. David, tell us a little bit about what you're offering here in Minnesota and a little bit about your product, and then kind of let you go a little bit.
All right.
I don't know how much longer you want to go. If you want a little Vikings banter, I mean,
Yeah, a little bit.
Are you a
Totally up to
Vikings
you.
fan?
I actually am. I'm from St. Louis, so I don't have an NFL team.
Okay.
So,
All right.
well, you were a Rams fan then.
I was. I'm a diehard Rams fan.
Fair enough.
Not
yeah.
like Stan Kroenke.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. No,
Okay,
that's
sounds
fair.
good.
Well, let's do it.
We'll get her going. Reagan, ready?
Are we ready?
You want to count us down maybe from 7?
6 or 7?
Hello, Vikings Nation, and welcome back to episode 139 of the Vikes Verified Podcast.
go.
As you can see, special location today. We are live from Fogarty Arena in Blaine, the day that the USA takes the gold medal in the men's hockey at the Olympics. What an exciting day. What a nice event. We got curling behind us, and more importantly, we've got David here from Gateway Fiber. Tremendous new company expanding to Minnesota, based in St. Louis. David, tell us a little bit about your product and what you're offering for Minnesotans.
Absolutely. Well, thank you first of all for having me on the show today.
Yeah.
So Gateway Fiber, as you said, is based in St. Louis, but we have expanded a couple of years ago actually to the Minnesota market. So we're in the Twin City area. First was Minnesota side, Minneapolis side. Now we also have St. Paul side. And we are expanding rapidly throughout mostly Metro West, Metro Northwest area. We offer a fully 100% fiber internet service. No copper, no cable. We also don't make you deal with the copper and cable companies.
Yeah.
So those legacy providers that you've hated for all those years, not us.
Yeah.
We are very different.
I love that.
It's a
And
refreshing addition in Minnesota.
for sure. And talking about those legacy companies, what do you guys offer that differentiates yourself in the market? Maybe a little more customer service. What do you think are the things that separate you?
Yeah, well, the obvious thing is we're faster. We have more speed.
Yep.
And our speed is symmetrical as opposed to the typical copper, which is high speed download, low speed upload. Well, if you're a gamer or if you're one of those content producers who uploads videos to YouTube, you hate that.
Yeah.
Whereas we offer you a seamless, symmetrical pathway, both up and down. Also, yes, customer service is outstanding. When you call us, you don't get the push one for this, push two for this, and wait 10 minutes to get connected to somebody who may or may not be a human being.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have people in call centers, not only in St. Louis, but also up here in the Minneapolis area, who want to talk to you, and you will get online with them almost immediately.
Yeah.
And we will stay on the line until we figure out how to solve your problem for you.
Yeah, I for one can speak for having to speak to a chatbot AI agent, the frustrations that you can have, and just the lack of relationship on the phone is something that's shocking to me, and it's awesome to see that you guys are kind of taking a more connection-based approach with your customer base and being able to provide faster speeds. I mean, esports is also one of the most rising industries in the game, and I think for you guys to be able to offer a service like that is definitely a game changer in the industry. So excited to have you guys and hear about how you guys have really been expanding and seem to be growing every year. So I think it's just a great addition for the Midwest here, and specifically Minnesota, who, as I said, am tired of the AI-based agents and some of the large corporations.
I think you're exactly right, Matt. David, native of St. Louis here, lost his NFL team.
Two of them.
Two of them.
Yeah.
Yes, the Phoenix Cardinals were originally the St. Louis Cardinals before, well, they were the Chicago Cardinals first.
Yes.
Then the St. Louis Cardinals for 20 years. We have this 20-year thing
Yes.
with
Yeah.
franchises.
And now he's seen his franchise go to Los Angeles and have
Back to Los Angeles.
you
but
know,
yeah.
immense amounts of success. If you had NFL allegiance today, where would you lean?
So contrary to popular belief, the Missouri town or Missouri team is not the Chiefs.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't all love the Chiefs. That's the
Yeah.
other side of the state.
That would be the
So-
easy answer, too, so I like that.
It would be
Yeah.
the easy answer, and I'm not a big Chiefs fan.
Yeah.
Sorry, all my fellow Missourians who are.
Yep.
I'm just not. I actually have, and not just because I'm here politically, but
Yeah.
I actually have kind of adopted the Vikings because I see a team that has struggled over the years.
Yeah.
And has come so close to NFL success, so close.
Yeah.
Just to have it yanked out from under them.
Definitely.
And I feel like I always root for the underdog.
Yeah.
And I would love to see them bring home a Super Bowl championship. Even though I don't live here, but obviously I'm here quite a bit on business. But I love the fact that there's this underdog team that nobody kind of expects to win from
Definitely.
outside the market. But
Yeah.
you all expect them to win.
Yeah.
And they don't. And I wish they would. They've come so close. So close.
No, I can respect that because, like I said, it'd be easy to jump on another team, maybe more successful ones like Kansas City. But as you mentioned, this fan base is one of the more passionate. I mean, bias aside, I think one of the best fan bases in the NFL. The game days experience that we have at US Bank Stadium, I think, is up there with the best. And man, is this fan base overdue for a championship? So it's fun to have you, along for that ride for us as we, search for one each and every year. But it definitely is an exciting time to be a Vikings fan. I want to kind of go back to your days as a Rams fan, though. A good question that I had was, just during your time being in St. Louis, having the team there, what was a favorite player or two for you growing up, or just really watching the Rams? Who really were some of your favorite players on those teams?
So we had the greatest show on turf
Yeah.
back then. So which led us to Super Bowl 34 and Super Bowl 36. We won 34, lost 36 to the hated Patriots.
Yes.
The only team in the NFL who I absolutely despise.
Yeah.
I was so glad to see them lose the Super Bowl. So I would say Kurt Warner,
Yep.
who I've met a couple of times because he
That's
still
awesome.
lives in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Super nice guy, awesome, nice guy. I'm a St. Louis Battlehawks fan for the
Okay.
UFL,
Yep,
and
I
guess
love
who's our
that.
head coach now? Ricky Prohl,
Yeah.
Ricky.
who caught the NFC Championship winning touchdown against
Yeah.
Tampa to send us to the Super Bowl in 1999-2000 season.
Yes.
I love
I've
that
also met
Prohl.
Ricky.
And his son had a stint with the Vikings
I was
as
just
well.
going to say,
Yes,
yeah, what a
well,
small world answer.
And
there.
his son Austin. I mean, so you're talking about Austin. So he was playing second base many years ago at a baseball tournament that I umpired. Ricky was coaching, and Austin was playing second.
Oh, no way.
This has been many years ago in
Yeah.
North Carolina. I'm from here, St. Louis originally, but I live in North Carolina. So I have connections to the Pearl family
Yep.
in a way. But definitely Kurt Warner. Marshall Faulk was just so fun to watch.
Yeah, he was.
Blast to watch.
I went to several games at the Dome, and just to watch him, what you see on TV is accurate, but he's even faster looking in person.
Definitely.
As you see him sprint down the field
Yep.
through a hole you could have driven a truck through,
Yeah.
and he's just gone.
Yeah.
The amazing thing with Falk was he was like a sixth receiver out there.
Yeah.
Because he had more catching yards than a lot of wide receivers did or tight ends did. It was just fun to watch that entire Greatest Show on Turf do
Yeah.
their thing.
Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt,
Steven
Jackson.
Yep.
Such
Action
great
Jackson.
options. The greatest
Yeah.
show on
Action
turf.
We've
Jackson,
got a
man.
lot of legends. So
Yes.
we appreciate the time, David. Minnesotans, we've talked about how good of a fan base you are. If you're looking for fiber that is as good as you are fan-wise, check out Gateway Fiber. And David, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. All right. Awesome. Always good to get an outside perspective there.
Hey, absolutely.
Appreciate it, David. Yep.
Thanks for doing this. This
Yeah.
is great.
No problem.
Fantastic.
All right. Swinging back into things here, all things Vikings.
All righty, Matt.
I think the biggest topic to talk about here, Nick, is the scouting combine. And fun fact, we ourselves will have boots on the ground in Indianapolis next weekend. A big development in Vikes Verified Nation. We were able to get our hands on some credentials. We'll be able to talk to some players, rub some shoulders, and have some fun out in Indianapolis. So, Nick, I think a great way to start this off would be, before we get into the players, what are some position groups mainly that we're going to have our eyes on when we get into Indianapolis Thursday?
100%, Matt. Well, it's going to be hard to not have our eyes on all of them, but I will say off the top of my head, I'm watching closely the safeties group for sure.
Definitely.
I'm watching the linebackers group, and I'm also watching the running backs. Love watching dynamic running backs at the combine. You know, historically a place where they can boost their draft stock tremendously with their ability to test well. And as for safeties, you know, looking for that fluidity on the field, the guys who are, you know, not only the best testing athletes, but the guys who are instinctual,
Yeah.
the guys who prepare the right way, the guys who are great in the media session. So we're going to have our eyes on those positions for the Minnesota Vikings, 3 positions that I believe, you know, are critical in getting us to that next level and getting to the places that we want to go, Matt. Any positions that you're going to have your eyes on that I missed?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to have my eyes on the interior, specifically on defense. I think a defensive tackle is an underrated position of need for this Vikings team. You look at Javon Hargrave likely getting cut, Jonathan Allen, who is a good player but is aging, and then you've got some more upside guys in Levi, Drake Rodriguez, and Taimani. But I think this group needs a first or second round interior type player to really provide a jolt to this defense. I think obviously cornerback and secondary has become a huge need for many Vikings fans, but a good pass rush helps negate that back end there.
Yeah.
And we've seen Flores been able to produce high-end defenses with guys like Stephon Gilmore, Fabian Moreau, Shaq Griffin. And I think there is still a way for us to get our hands on an upgrade in that position while still adding to that interior to this defense. And I think that just helps expand what Brian Flores is able to do and why he's going to be, most likely providing a top 10 defense in the NFL next season.
Totally agree, Matt. Love some of those interior guys that you named. It seems like more and more as time goes on, you see a lot more of these traditional football teams, like this year's champion in the Seattle Seahawks, run the ball effectively and move the line of scrimmage, both on offense and defense.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of the game's coming full circle after this, you know, passing and aerial attack era of the last 10 years. You know, it's kind of getting back to the fundamental thoughts of, you know, let's be great in the trenches, let's run the football well, let's control the clock, and let's be situational masters, as Kevin O'Connell would say. And you saw the Seattle Seahawks do exactly that this season, Matt. Before we move forward a little more, wanted to touch on a little more somber topic. Minnesota Vikings had a player, Rondale Moore, pass away yesterday, and I just want to give a brief moment of silence for Rondale. You know, on the roster for a short period of time, but it is very apparent, you know, how respected and gifted Rondale was, not only as a player, but, you know, as a young man, Matt. Just a moment of silence for Rondale.
Yeah, I mean, prayers out to Rondale and his family. Absolutely tragic news. It's been an unfortunate last couple years for this fan base and this organization, just having tragedy strike. I think it goes to show how passionate and supportive this fan base is, being able to rally around these things when tragedy strikes. But again, I think this just highlights mental health and really the ability to, you know, I just put that out there that if you know, you are having, you know, struggles, that you should really just reach out to friends and family and try to be able to relate to them, and that goes for everybody. I just think it's something that gets a little bit overlooked sometimes, and it's something that's become more prevalent, and I just wanted to put a spotlight on that while also, putting out our prayers and thoughts to the Rondell Moore family and just those situations in general. I think it's a tragedy and something that we just have to be a little bit more aware of to try to help where we can.
Yeah, well said, Matt. Well said. I think for NFL players in particular, guys who are so gifted physically, this seems like it's your career path, and it has to be your career path. And, sometimes it seems like it's the only lane for some of these guys. And, unfortunately, you see things like this happen, and you wonder, and the people close to them, what more could we have done? So to your point, just raising awareness for that, and rest in peace to Rondell Moore. All right. Let's move forward here, Matt. Talking a little bit more about the Combine. We talk about it. We're going to be there. There's going to be plenty of prospects on the board. So the Combine, hand in hand with the NFL Draft, looking like we got about roughly 10 picks this year for the NFL Draft. It is the probably best collection of picks that we've held in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say. With great opportunity, a new GM, a new shot caller. Rob Brzezinski will be the one, manning the ship this year for the NFL Draft. Heavy influence from Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores in these selections, of course, but I think that this is such a good opportunity for Rob to put his footprint on this franchise. Let's put a really strong draft class in this year, and let's see what we can do. We get a comp pick for Sam Darnold. I believe that's another third. We're gonna have a little bit of thunder power, a little firepower here in the front half of the draft. 18th pick overall. It's kind of up in question. There's a few different position groups that we could target. I think it'd be a good idea, Matt, for us to potentially go over our guys in this draft, guys that we see as, maybe not the highest touted, but guys that we believe would translate really well to our roster or find success, in their NFL career. So I'm going to start it off with the quarterbacks. We've got Talon Green from Arkansas, Minnesota ties. I believe he's a younger brother of Seth Green, if I'm correct. Great athlete, great arm strength. We got Luke Altmaier from Illinois, really productive guy, beat the Gophers multiple times. We saw him take the top off in the final minute of the game to beat us. He is a very physically gifted guy with a really strong arm. And then we've got Garrett Nussmeier, LSU, a guy that was thought of to potentially even be the number 1 pick in this draft no more than 15 months ago. But, a tough senior season for Garrett production-wise. Seemed like he was dealing with, a little bit of mental struggle in his own head. He's a very physically gifted guy, and I think that those gifts are going to shine at the Combine. And then we've got Jack Strand from Minnesota State Moorhead, Matt. Shout out to Division II football. Shout out to the NSIC. If you know anything about Jack Strand and you've watched any of his tape, this guy has got a legitimate arm. I'm talking NFL level, huge stature. He's about 6'5", 240. He's done just about everything you can for a football team. Granted, it was the Division II level. Those of you that have played there and seen it know it's still a pretty high level of football. And Strand is going to turn some heads, I think, in this pre-draft process. How about the running backs, Matt?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Strand there. And also Talon Green is super interesting to me. I think his upside is up there, probably on one of the best in that quarterback room. So a very interesting prospect there. Moving on to the running backs, this is another area that I'm a big fan of. I've done a lot of research on this group, and the Vikings feel like they need an injection of youth in that running back room, and I would be very happy if they decide to make a running back pick somewhere between the rounds of 1 through 4. And some names that I think could fall in that category would be starting off with Jamari Taylor from Virginia, former HBCU running back. This guy led the ACC in yards after contact, missed tackles. He's an absolute ball player, and I think he would be a great addition to this Vikings backfield. Another name, ironically, Terrion Stewart from Virginia Tech. Both of Virginia running backs are going to be great options in this draft. They both provide a lot of upside in that backfield and seem to be third down weapons as well. And then some other names here, Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas, Jadarian Price from Notre Dame, Emmett Johnson locally from Nebraska would be maybe my favorite pick from this group. And then you've got 2 other guys in Nicholas Singleton, former 5-star recruit from Penn State, and Robert Henry, a more slept-on name from University of Texas San Antonio. He's a little bit more of a smaller back, but is a absolute lightning bolt out of the backfield and could really be fun in the screen game and as a third down running back.
100%, Matt. Names that fire me up in that group is Emmett Johnson and Jadarian Price the most. I think Jadarian Price, not necessarily under the shadow of Jeremiah Love, but it's hard not to just absolutely focus all your attention on Jeremiah Love. He's a tremendous prospect, tremendous running back, but Jadarian Price is no scrub himself. This is a guy that, goes potentially late first, mid second, into the early third, somewhere in that range. But talk about a big play threat, a guy who's got the build, a guy who's got the production, a guy who came from a pro-style system. I mean, Jadarian is the real deal. And then the local product from Richfield, graduate of Holy Angels, Emmett Johnson, just a do-it-all guy for the Nebraska Cornhuskers last year. Cannot believe the University of Minnesota did not offer this guy, Matt. That is absolutely nuts.
It's kind of a shame.
But this guy can catch the ball out of the backfield. This guy can hit the home runs. But more importantly, that vision and that ability to make one cut, find space, finish through contact. He's a complete guy, and everything I've heard about him is the work ethic is second to none. So very excited about the chance to potentially add one of those guys. I'm going to move on to the wide receivers, Matt. We've got Jacoby Lane out of USC, Tyron Montgomery out of John Carroll, small school guy who at the Senior Bowl was running some crisp routes against SEC corners, Big Ten corners. He can compete with the best of them. We've got Cyrus Allen from Cincinnati, smooth and reliable guy, more of a possession receiver that could add depth to this room. Zachariah Branch out of Georgia, previously USC, very explosive guy, elite acceleration. He would immediately add some of that yak ability and some of that tackle breaking and tackle avoiding ability to this offense, as well as the return game. You can try him out on the back end. I know we got Miles Price, but it's always good to have competition in these rooms, Matt. Always. So Skylar Bell from UConn, another guy, kind of falling under the radar a little bit, but super talented in this draft. We've got Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, a high point guy that can go up and get the football, tremendous athleticism. How could you forget about Omar Cooper, Indiana, super smooth route runner, national champion, made a ton of plays for Fernando Mendoza downfield, including his toe tap to win the game on the 2-minute drill, one of the best catches in college football this season. And then we've got a guy that maybe you can talk about.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great last addition to this group. And he hails from the great city of Mankato, Minnesota, and that is Trayshawn Watson. He had a dominant last 2 seasons for the Mavericks. This past season he dealt with some injury, but he is one of the most dynamic D2 wide receivers these past few years, and I think he's going to get some looks, maybe not in the draft per se, but when you look at UDFAs, he's going to get plenty of offers, and I hope that the Vikings are one that makes him an offer, just because I think he's got some very tantalizing attributes, and I think he's definitely worth a shot, especially with the success that we've seen with UDFAs in the past.
That's true, but I think we're going to avoid the Mavericks in this
we'll see.
In this regard. Just kidding. Adam Thielen panned
Maybe
out.
the next Thielen.
Maybe we
Who
bring him
knows,
in.
man.
He's going to have to earn it. We'll see. All right, moving on to the tight ends. We got Sam Roush out of Stanford, more of a possession tight end, great blocker. We're looking for TE3 competition, so we'll talk a little bit more
Koziel,
later
too,
about the tight end situation, but it's possible that the Vikings look at a tight end in this draft. Tanner Koziel, Houston, by way of NC State, I believe, before that, developed there, super athletic guy. Actually, high school teammates with J.J. McCarthy at Nazareth Academy, LaGrange, Illinois. Think about that connection. There's a guy that you could bring back into the wheelhouse for McCarthy. Got chemistry out of the gate. Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. This guy, athletic freak. I mean, probably the best build you've seen on a tight end in the last decade. Did a lot to the Gophers in that game. We watched that game. He's a guy that can block his ass off. He's a guy that can make plays downfield. He's really complete, and I think for that reason he's probably going to go in the top 25 picks.
Yeah.
So excited about his future. There's an opportunity we look at him at 18, depending on if Hawkinson's restructure doesn't work out the way we think. There's a lot of variables there, but he's certainly an option. Justin Jolie from NC State, guy with really strong ball skills. I mean, you want to touch on him at all? I know you're a big fan of his.
Yeah, actually, I'll touch on these last two here. Justin Jolie from NC State and Eli Heidenreich from Navy both made our Unicorn 2026 NFL Draft Unicorn list. These guys have an elite ceiling for their games. Jolie's more of a bigger-bodied tight end who is going to be a more dynamic option in the pass game. Heidenreich's going to be more of a Kyle Juszczyk-esque
CJ Hammer time
type player, and I think that would be a perfect fit, especially with the Vikings moving on from CJ Ham as he retired, and look for a little bit more of a dynamic player in this offense. I think Heidenreich is a very intriguing option for Minnesota and one of my favorite overall players in this draft. I think he is some guy that is going to go on day 2 to 3 and going to surprise a lot of NFL fans, as I think his skill set fits the modern day NFL offense
For
very
sure.
well.
And people don't want to talk about special teams, Matt, because it's not sexy enough. But Heidenreich is special teams value out of the gate. This is a guy, you look at these military academy guys a lot of the time, Bo Richter,
Yeah.
they're super, regiment oriented, attention to detail, guys that take their job seriously, and guys that prepare the right way. So Eli Heidenreich, to your point, great future ahead of him. Let's move on to the offensive lineman, Matt. Touch on him.
Yeah, I think we'll start off with a local Minnesotan, Riley Ballman, Wisconsin tackle. He's going to be a day 3 guy, but I think he provides a lot of upside and is definitely someone I would assume that Minnesota's going to have their eyes on. Then you look at Caleb Tiernan, Northwestern tackle. He should be a day 1-2 guy. Very good, sturdy outside tackle. Looks to be able to play left and right, so I think the flexibility there provides a lot of upside.
Yeah.
Then you get into some more grittier names. You got Bo Jennings from Iowa, Connor Liu from Auburn, and Jennings Dunker from Iowa as well.
Jennings Dunker.
Both all 3 of these guys seem to be more gritty type players. I would love any of them in purple and gold, as I think we are going to be looking for an addition, especially at the center position. All 3 of these guys would, I think, be great fits in that Minnesota O-line room. Then we'll finish off with some guys in Blake Miller from Clemson, Brian Parker from Duke, and Jake Slaughter from Florida.
Yeah.
Slaughter's another one of my favorite prospects in the draft. I think, again, center is going to be a position of need. I expect them to maybe look at that day 2 or 3, and Slaughter was a multi-year starter for the Gators and could be a great addition to this Minnesota Vikings O-line that most likely will be moving on from Ryan Kelly.
Yeah, you're totally right. And sign me up for a center with the last name Slaughter. I mean, that just sounds right. Sign me up for any Iowa offensive lineman. I mean, you've seen the way they develop and pan out. Shout out to my boy Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, alumni of the Vikes Verified podcast. But these guys from Iowa, man, they are pro style. They are gritty, and they get after it in the weight room. They are NFL ready by the time they get there. Moving over to the defensive line, Matt. We got Caleb Banks out of Florida, 6'6", 340, just a huge guy, very disruptive, flashes, a ton of interior penetration traits. He can get in the backfield and just make a ton of plays.
Yep.
I think him and Brian Flores' defense, shooting gaps on the defensive line. He didn't have mind-blowing production at Florida, but when he did pop on tape, it was like, okay, if we can get this guy to do it on more of a regular basis, he's going to be a very special player.
Yeah.
So same thing with Lee Hunter. He's kind of the same way, super explosive, in that 6'4", 330 range, run stuffing defensive tackle that can develop in, the pass rushing game a little bit, but he just has that first step and that explosiveness that, you're kind of looking for. And it's exactly what we've seen out of Jalen Redmond, who has developed into such a, great player for us in the middle of the field. Totally unexpected, the production he's had, but it's all first step, aggressiveness, and play recognition. And, that's what we see from some of these guys. Darrell Jackson Jr. from Florida State's another one. Dominique Orange from Iowa State. Yep, the big citrus. Big citrus, physical run first defender. Orange brings a ton of toughness and depth, to this defensive front. We're kind of thinking, Javon Hargrave's probably a cut candidate. You probably roll with Jonathan Allen and Jalen Redmond. We got to add a young, explosive piece to that core. We do have Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, but he's more of a 5 technique, more of a defensive end. So Kalen McDonald's another guy, Ohio State, kind of similar to Iowa. Can't really go wrong with these guys that come from pedigree
Ohio State,
programs like that in a
Good
lot of
option
ways.
there.
And then Devin Eastern, Minnesota, defensive tackle. Had to throw him on the list. He's a guy who,
Day 3 guy.
Yeah, day 3 guy, but has the makings of a guy who can develop into, a great player if he's able to get a little bit more agile up front. But he's a great locker room fit as well, being here in Minnesota. Move on to the linebackers, Matt.
Yeah, man, that defensive tackle group really fires me up. Like I mentioned, I would love a lot of those guys out of that group. Moving on to linebacker, this is another surprising position of need. You've got Eric Wilson set to be an unrestricted free agent. Ivan Pace, whose game had fell off last season, and his role on this team may be in question. I think for that reason, linebacker on day 2 or 3 is another position that I expect the Vikings to target here. So let's start off with some names. And Harold Perkins Jr. from LSU, a highly regarded recruit going into his days as being a Tiger. He last year had a really good season. This year just as well, but went a little bit more under the radar. I think Perkins would be a great addition to this defense. You look at Kyle Lewis. This guy is probably the most east to west type guy on the field. An absolute ball player. And just a playmaker that I think would thrive in a Brian Flores type defense.
Talk about his coverage production at the Senior Bowl as well.
Yeah,
You watch
I mean,
those one-on-one
making plays.
clips. I mean, he's glued to guys. Very good man cover linebacker, defending Texas routes, defending flat routes from running backs. This is a guy that you want in the middle of your defense.
Yeah, I think Lewis was most impressive covering routes. And then speaking about the Senior Bowl, a guy in Jacob Rodriguez, when it comes to the run game, his peanut punch is up there with the best. And I think he is another guy, a former quarterback, who has excelled as a switch to linebacker at Texas Tech. This guy seems like one of my favorite third-round picks for the Minnesota Vikings, and I think would just provide a great partner to a guy in Blake Cashman as you look to anchor the middle of that defense. Finally, just some other names that have stood out to us as we go into Indianapolis. Kendall Daniels from Oklahoma, another east to west guy. Trey Moore from Texas. Eric Gentry from USC, another unicorn candidate for Vikes Verified. And Jacob Golday from Cincinnati. All of these guys would be great additions to the linebacker group in Minnesota, and all have kind of their each unique skill sets that I think could be a great addition for this Vikings front seven.
Yeah, whether you're a linebacker on this list or you're a safety, I think all these NFL teams are looking for a guy like Nick Emanwari. Like we said, we talked about him a ton before the draft last year, but a guy that you can deploy as the sub linebacker in the inside spot, a guy that you can play in a cover 2 spot. Josh Metellus has kind of been that guy for the Vikings the last couple of years, but he's left a little bit to be desired playing on the back end in coverage. So I think NFL teams are always looking for these guys. You think about Isaiah Simmons years ago. He was supposed to be kind of the prototype for this. And then I think people got scared away because he didn't really pan out in the NFL. But if you deploy these guys correctly, guys with good size, good speed, good explosiveness, you can really play them wherever you want to. And if you're able to find, what they're really good at, you can start to do some dangerous things as a defensive coordinator. I'm going to move to the cornerbacks here, Matt. Guys that I like in particular. We got Julian Neal from Arkansas, first guy. He's probably a little bit later down the board. And then we've got Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. Missed the entire senior season with a torn ACL, but you look at the 2024 season, and boy, was he productive. This guy is a complete corner, I think, if we get the version of him on tape in 2024.
100%.
And he comes out here and tests well at the Combine, does well at the Pro Day. He's a guy that's going to rise quickly. We got Mansour Delane, physical, battle-tested guy in the SEC. This is a guy that could potentially go top 10. If he finds his way to 18, I feel like Rob Brzezinski in this front office is going to have a hard time not pulling the trigger on Delane. And then you got D'Angelo Pons from Indiana, a guy that we watched in the national championship. Very small statured guy, but you talk about the heart of a lion. This guy making plays in the national championship, line him up with whoever. He's an absolute gamer, making a ton of plays at the catch point and just showing elite physicality. Then we got Devin Marshall from NC State, another guy we really like. And then Chris Johnson, San Diego State. Tell me a little bit about him, Matt.
Yeah, he's another long, fluid corner on the outside there. I think his length would be a great addition to this secondary, especially with some smaller guys in Moreau and Murphy and McGlothern. I think Johnson provides a little bit more length and ability to man that other outside position. I'm very intrigued by him. I think round 2 seems to be the area that he's going to go. And if he's available at pick 49, I think the Vikings will definitely be intrigued to take him if they don't go 18 for cornerback.
I agree, and let's move to the safeties, Matt. Super excited about these guys. I'll just name the names off the top. Then we'll touch on each of them a little bit briefly. We got Bud Clark out of TCU, Emmanuel McNeil Warren out of Toledo, Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon by way of Purdue, Michael Taff out of Texas, and then Zakee Wheatley out of Penn State. This group, Matt, I think is very, very hyper-focused for the Minnesota Vikings. Haven't heard the official announcement of Harrison Smith, but let's be honest, it's either one more year at about 60, 70% capacity or nothing. So you need a guy who's going to replace him. Some people look at Jay Ward and Theo Jackson as starters. I'm kind of in between on them. You absolutely need to add another dynamic guy to this room. Let's start with Bud Clark.
Yeah, this safety room, I think paired with the defensive tackles are my favorite position groups from this draft coming up here. And Bud Clark has really put a name for himself, made a name for himself, I should say, at the Senior Bowl. An undersized safety, but all he did at TCU was produce. I believe he had 15 career interceptions in NCAA.
Outrageous.
Those are some crazy numbers to put up, especially in the SEC and Big 12, going up against those type of competitions. So Clark would be a great addition to any ball club. McNeil Warren and Thieneman, these are some favorite favorites to be mocked to the first or second round in the Vikings. Both of them provide more of a long, rangy safety. I think Warren might have a little bit more overall range, but the Eneman really packs a punch in the run game there. And both of those guys are probably some of my favorite options for the Vikings to target on day 1 or 2. And then we'll finish off with Taff from Texas and Wheatley from Penn State. Both high-end players going up against talent week in and week out, and have really produced as multi-year starters. And again, as this team looks to replace a guy in Harrison Smith and try to find a way to get Metellus back into his role as kind of that box-type safety, it seems to be like safety is going to be a position of need through the first 3 rounds, and I would be shocked if the Vikings don't come away with one on day 1 or 2.
Need a ball hawk on the back end. I'm very intrigued, in particular with Emmanuel McNeil Warren out of Toledo. Just playing in the MAC conference, it's hard to get the highest level of exposure, but you just turn this guy's tape on. I believe 6'3", 215, runs all over the field, plays center field. He'll come and light you up in the run game. He'll light you up at the catch point. Shout out to Daniel Jeremiah for kind of, I think, setting the tone on what this guy can be as a prospect. He's very high on him, one of the best in the business. And I think McNeil Warren is such a good culture fit here, as well as Thieneman out of Oregon. So we'll see if we decide to, spend the capital at that front end of the draft on one of these guys. It's very possible. People are saying Thieneman is going to test out of his mind next weekend at the Combine. Say he's super explosive, well over a 40-inch vert. He's going to run extremely fast. So I think that's something that may creep him into the top 20 picks, top 25 picks. We're going to have to see. But, either way, we got to add one of these guys in our mind that we just mentioned, and, we're going to be pretty happy with what we got on the back end there.
All right. Exciting times coming ahead here as we head to Indianapolis come this weekend. Before we get into some free agency talk of maybe who we should re-sign, release, want to give a quick shout-out to Pull Tab Sports. They're partnering with Gateway Fiber to put on the great event, the Gateway Games today, celebrating an Olympic gold. I think most fans in here can agree it is a fun day, Sunday fun day, some may call.
Yeah.
And we're just part of that fun as we look to provide a little bit more coverage, but wanted to give a brief shout-out to both Pull Tab Sports and Gateway Fiber as we look to really add on to that Olympic gold medal win here. And a quick, brief break. I gotta go pee quick.
And a quick, brief break. Oh, yeah. Just maybe mark that spot or something. And a quick, brief break. And a brief break.
Call out to the live stream.
Yeah, so
What up?
I don't know where Reagan went. I don't know if we can just keep going or if we get started again. I really don't know.
I don't know either. We might just have her a 5-6 minute break.
So let's just get in. Yeah, touch on free agency a little bit. Brees Hall, like that.
Yeah, I think we just have a brief.
We
free
can go
agency.
10 more minutes max.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be much longer than that.
That was a good job getting through the list.
Yeah. We did a good job not getting too bogged down in and we could really talk all day about the prospects. So.
And we're gonna be doing that next week again. So.
Yeah. I think we're still
Bobby's still getting greased up over there. So right now,
We're still
it's like one person.
live.
It's only one person.
Man, the 2 p.m. slot. All right.
You even said take pictures. I was like, sure.
We can take one. Adam, come back.
Should I go try to find Reagan?
I don't know where she went. You could go try.
We are live, so.
Maybe we should have not taken the break and just muscled through it.
I thought we'd have time to take a 30-second break.
It's not turning out to be that. Hello, Pull Tab Sports Nation.
All right, I'm gonna go try to find her. Oh, here she comes.
All right, 10 more.
All right, we just got 10 more minutes.
What were you looking for?
We'll
We'll buy you one after.
Yeah, we'll get you one after. All right.
Okay. We just got 5 or 10 more minutes
Yep.
here, Reagan. We're going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's touch a little bit on free agency, Matt. I don't want to get too deep into this yet, but the start of the new league year is coming on March 11th, I believe.
Before we know it.
3 p.m. So it's going to be exciting to see, the tampering period, how quickly things are going to unfold. I just want to touch on a few prospects. Something I thought about this morning. Mentioned it earlier in the show, the tight end situation. It's going to get interesting. Josh Oliver's a guy who's going to be here next year.
Yeah.
TJ Hawkinson's a guy who's getting paid about 16.5 average annual value in his contract. Has not played up to that level. One of the highest paid tight ends in the league. So it's looking like TJ is going to have to settle on some sort of restructure or conversion, or we are going to have to cut or trade him. It's going to be difficult to trade him with that content or with that contract, in my opinion. So, something I thought about this morning, a guy who's a free agent this year, a guy who's potentially looking for a fresh start, maybe wants to stay in purple, is a guy in Isaiah Likely. Shown a ton of explosiveness in that Baltimore offense. He's a big play threat.
Yeah.
I think he would fit here really well. Him and Josh Oliver, both former Ravens. I think that's a potential avenue. Like we said, we may look in the draft as well at tight ends. But Isaiah Likely is a guy to keep your eye on and see what kind of deal he gets. He's projected right now to have a 2-year deal worth about $8 million per year. So, you think about it, 2 years, $16 million, half the price of Hawkinson, and maybe more of the explosiveness at this point.
Yeah, I think if we do move on from Hawkinson, Likely would be someone that I would rise to the top of the list for options for Minnesota. To me, I'm still not fully on board with getting rid of Hawkinson. I think this Vikings team has other needs that maybe it needs to allocate their limited funds to, especially with being the fact that we start the offseason with negative $40 million. There's plenty of levers for the Vikings to pull to get above the cap space needed. But again, I think if you're looking at other positions, I think for me, cornerback, linebacker, potentially center are positions that I would still value over tight end. And I know Hawkinson, obviously, his production dipped. I think that's where you can get value on a restructure, where you still are able to bring him back on a reduced number. And it still bides you that time where maybe you do take a guy on day 3 again, where you try to, play that a little bit more long-term play of letting him sit for a year or two and maybe pushing that position of need out just one more season. But again, if they do move on from Hawkinson, I think likely would be an awesome option for this Minnesota offense as we look to really provide a safety net for J.J. McCarthy or whoever is operating this offense. Touching on some other Vikings impending free agents, a guy in Harrison Smith, I think this is a pretty obvious answer. If he comes back, I would be all in on re-signing him. But I think based on how that last home game played out, it does seem to be like a retirement is more in the cards.
Yep.
But at the time, until he says no, you can't really shut that door yet. And then touching on Eric Wilson and Jalen Naylor, I think, and then Ryan Wright, I think those 3 to me of the impending free agents stand out as guys that are priority additions to bring back into Minnesota. I don't need to dig into why. I think all 3 are very obvious. But again, those 3 are at the top of the list when it comes to guys that I would like to see stay in Minnesota.
Yeah, and then we look at other guys like Jeff Okudah, hand up, thought it was a career revival year, not even close. Couldn't really stay on the field, so tough to see there. Tavier Thomas, supposed to be a special teams ace, came in and left a lot to be desired, and he just picked up Drew Rosenhaus's agency as well, so that number's getting driven up a little bit more. I don't see the need to bring him back. We got guys who can already compete on special teams and guys who don't get penalties on special teams. He negated, I believe, 2 of Miles Price's long returns himself last season, and you can't point fingers, but they threw the flag and it was on you. So you look at that. Justin School, another guy, came in, whether it was short weeks and he was a little bit behind on preparation, didn't perform all that well, and probably looking for a job elsewhere this year. Carson Wentz, maybe you bring him back as the QB3 if he's open to that role. He's going to want somewhere where he can compete as at least a backup. So I see him probably going elsewhere. And then you look at guys in Jalen Redmond, Bo Richter, Xavier Scott. Bo Richter, I think, like I said, he's well liked in this organization.
Special teams
militant
stud.
Guy, bring him back. Jalen Redmond, sign him to a long-term deal now. We've seen the production. He's an ERFA, which actually helps us with our capability to re-sign him.
He's not going anywhere.
He's not going anywhere. We're going to lock up Jalen Redmond. As for the people, I want to talk a little bit about speculation, some of the top name free agents, right? So we talk about running back, and you talk about Aaron Jones. I don't know how realistic it is for him to be on the Vikings next year. I don't see it happening. He probably does his retirement tour somewhere else. And we're looking at Jordan Mason, and then you got to add a guy to the room, right? So a lot of people want to talk about Breece Hall. Coming out of the New York Jets, played 4 years for the New York Jets. He's only 24 years old, but, to me, it's not worth the tread on those tires. Some of the big volume games he had in New York, has battled injuries the last couple of years. He's getting projected a 4-year, $41 million deal from Spot Rack right now, averaging about $10.5 million per year. It's just too much capital to invest in a back in my mind, Matt. There's so many options in this draft. Like, go get Jadarian Price on a rookie contract if you're looking for a back like Breece Hall. No disrespect to Breece. I think he's an incredibly productive player. But I think that number and the tread he already has on his tires doesn't make sense for this team. Let's go get an outstanding rookie, a guy that can produce right away, hit some home runs for us, and I'm all on board for that. And Nakobe Dean, I'm going to put this guy in as my puzzle piece fit in free agency, right? We've talked about the declining play of Ivan Pace. He's supposed to be the heat seeker, can blitz the A-gaps, pass rushing specialist. Nakobe Dean is actually that, and he's done that for years now with the Philadelphia Eagles. So other than Nakobe, Matt, anyone else on your radar free agency-wise that maybe you have an interest in?
Yeah, I think 3-4 guys that stand out to me as realistic fits for this Vikings team. I think there's a couple different positions in need, but I'm going to start off with a guy in Cade Mays, center from Carolina. A little bit more of an underrated guy, maybe not the biggest name on the market, but he has been a very reliable starter for the Panthers, and I think with the team looking to find some stability there, moving on from most likely Ryan Kelly, Mays could be a really good option. Wide receiver, this is going to be a fun one. jumping the border, Romeo Dobbs. If the
Ooh.
Vikings move on from Naylor, I think Dobbs would be an interesting option to this wide receiver room. There's going to be some money to allocate if that does happen, and I think Dobbs could be a fun addition to pair with a guy like Jefferson and maybe potentially Addison.
Yeah.
Moving to the running back room, I know you had mentioned Breece Hall. I think another guy that strikes my interest is Rachaad White from Tampa Bay.
Choddy.
I think Chad provides a good aspect in the passing game, which is something that I think we'll need with Mason being more of a ground and pound, first and second down type back. I think Rachaad White pairs beautifully in that backfield and would be a guy I have my eyes on.
Answer me this. Rachaad White and Jordan Mason is our backfield next year. Is that a Super Bowl backfield?
I think it can be, yeah. I'm confident enough in both of
can
those guys.
be.
I'm confident enough.
He's a Rachaad White dynasty owner, so
That's
let's
not
remember
the
that.
only
That's
reason.
the only
Okay.
reason. So
Hey, I think that his game complements Mason's very well, does it not? Not other than me being a dynasty owner,
him
does it
being
complement?
less explosive than Mason doesn't pair
I think
with
he
anything.
pairs well in the passing game, and then you look at Mason being the ground and pound type guy.
I mean, we're looking for a thunderbolt, Matt. We're looking for lightning.
He's excelled in the screen game. I think you just hate that I own him in Dynasty.
Can we run between the tackles at all? or is
Yeah,
he
I
a
know, but we
screen
need
guy?
a third down guy too, right?
Okay, fair
we
enough.
don't have Ham to pass block.
Moving on from Rachaad White. You
I
know,
could
you
talk
guys
about your
can think what you
dynasty
want,
players.
but Rachaad White is about number 60 on the top free agents list.
Oh, my gosh.
So we're not going to go after him, I don't think.
Don't sleep on White.
I don't think so.
Don't
But
sleep on White.
Anyway, we're not going to
You heard it
speculate
here
too
first.
much more on free agency. We're going to leave it at that. But as Matt mentioned earlier, we will be at the NFL Combine next week, Wednesday to Sunday. Super excited to get in there, give you guys a little behind-the-scenes look at what some of that media availability looks like, some of the things that can happen in Lucas Oil Stadium at the Convention Center. Stay tuned with us. Shout out to Pull Tab Sports and Gateway Fiber for putting on such a great event, the Gateway Games. Shout out to
Vibes are
our
up there.
producer, Reagan. She's fantastic,
Yep.
setting up this mobile spot, and we are looking forward to bringing you guys the best content from Indy. This is the Vikes Verified Podcast. Skol Vikes.
Let's go. Skol Vikes and go USA. We
Let's
got
go,
the gold. Let's go.
USA.
USA.